Boris Johnson is facing an increasing revolt from his own MPs after it emerged 99% of England's population will fall under those two toughest coronavirus tiers when lockdown ends next week. Well, essentially, if you're in 3, it's another lockdown, right? Several senior Conservatives have urged the government to publish analysis of the impact that these tightened rules will have on reducing infection rates, as well as the effect it will have on people's livelihoods and the wider business community. Figures suggest that 119 areas that will fall into Tier 3 from next week. Out of those, only 8 have reported a rise in coronavirus cases. Why is the government doing this? And will you be obeying the rules from the 2nd of December? Lance Forman is a former Brexit Party MEP and businessman. Afternoon to you, Lance. Are you going to be a good boy from December the 2nd and do what you're told?
Well, life is so unfair, isn't it, Ian? You know, we're allowed to go nuts for 2 minutes. The government has gone nuts for 9 months.
Fair point.
How is that fair? You know, I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to say publicly on radio that they're going to break the law, because that would be great evidence for the police to come knocking at their door. But the rules are crazy, and you know, I'm completely baffled by what the government are doing, and I still don't even understand the purpose of what they're trying to do. Are they trying to save lives, or are they trying to save the NHS? Because if it's about saving lives, well, actually, you know, excess deaths this year are no worse than last year, and no worse they've been for the last few years. And if they're trying to save the NHS, then why destroy the entire economy? You know, they've already spent 400 billion on COVID measures unsuccessfully, because they haven't cured it, and we're still in a mess. And on top of that, the economy has declined by 10% of its value, which is another 200 billion. So that's 600 billion has been expended so far. That's £10,000 for every man, woman and child in the country. And, you know, that's 5 times what we spend every year on the NHS. So we're destroying our economy. How are we going to fund an NHS going forward? It's just, the whole thing is senseless.
Yeah, and even those figures from the Chancellor this week, by 2025, will still be 3% lower in terms of where we should be as an economy in 5 years' time. So, I mean, the destruction is vast.
It is, but and this is what's so, you know, strange about what's going on when, you know, people are asked, you know, are you comfortable with the lockdown? I think people are starting to turn against it. But, you know, if you work, you know, if you're an MP, or if you work in the civil service or whatever, work in the public sector, you know, you're still getting your salary, you've still got your job, you've got all that sort of job security and so on. It's the private sector where people have been hit, but even so, you know, people are on furlough, so, you know, they're okay at the moment. It's all going to come, you know, it's all going to go awry when furlough comes to an end. That's when things are going to go horribly wrong. We could have massive unemployment at the time, because we are literally destroying the economy. And the sector that I'm in, the hospitality sector, has been terrible. It's just been appallingly hit. And these new rules aren't going to help at all. You know, there's a couple of million people employed in that sector. And it's really not looking good. I just don't know how it's going to recover.
Does it feel to you, Lance, that this is, particularly if you're in a tier 3 area, this is just another lockdown? I mean, you can call it a tier, but it very much looks and smells like a lockdown.
It's no different to a lockdown. And, you know, that there are perhaps, you know, and that's the other thing, that, you know, the complexity of all these rules, nobody can really follow, you know, the difference between a lockdown and tier 3 and tier 3 and tier 2. You know, we've got to the point now where you have to allow people to take personal responsibility. Everybody understands the risk. We know that this is a life-threatening disease. We know the risk. It's a life-threatening judgment that you have to make when you cross a road. But people are, you know, by and large, people are sensible. 95% of people would know to protect themselves and to protect their families, and not let granny see some young person that they don't know sort of walking around coughing and spluttering. You know, we know to do that. You know, we are, as humans, we protect ourselves. Survival is very important. And for the few people that are sort of totally reckless, you know, whether you have a law or not, you're not going to stop that. You know, these laws are impossible to enforce. You're supposed to have a test if you're feeling like you've got a temperature, but who's enforcing that? It's up to individuals to make their own judgments. So laws are only as good as their enforceability, and these
Sure.
laws are not enforceable, so they are completely pointless. We have to trust the public now, and we have to get on with it. 99.5% of people are completely fine. They recover. There's no issue there. And actually, I think that the vast majority, I think we're actually at the point where we probably got herd immunity or very close to it, which is why you're seeing so few infections, or the numbers are coming down now, the deaths are coming down. I think about a third of the country, it has T-cell immunity anyway, so we'll never get it. And if you can't get it, you can't carry it. We know that at the most, 1 in 500 people that get COVID, very, very sadly, very tragically die. That's at very worst, probably 1 in 1,000, let's say 1 in 500. So if 50,000 people have died, what does that mean? That means that 25 million, if you multiply 50,000 by 500, that means that 25 million people have already had it. So if 25 million people have had it, a third of the population, another 20, 25 million can't get it. That means you've got 45 million people that have had it or can't get it. And if you can't get it, you can't pass it on either, which means the risks to the wider population are shrinking all the time, day by day. We have to get back to normality now.
Yeah, on that point, Lance, thank you. Lance Forman, former Brexit Party MEP. I mean, certainly something that keeps occurring to me every time I see those numbers every day. 20,000, 25,000, 29,000 people have had it. And you think, registered positive, depending on what you think of the test that does it. And it's never, I keep thinking, well, that's okay, that's good, right? So there's fewer people going to get it. Eventually, if you keep seeing those kind of numbers over the course of any given week, there's 100, 200,000 people that have got it. And most of those people are not in hospital. Most are certainly not going to die. Many, if not the majority, will never know they've had it. Well, over 5 weeks, there's 1 million people. But it could be so many more than that. That's just of the people that are tested. So you have to, we've been at this for 9 months now. You have to reasonably assume, based on the sort of evidence that we're being told, this is really easy to catch. It's not like flu, 4 times more virulent than flu in that respect. So based on all of that, then you'd have to assume that many, many millions of people in this country over a 9-month period would have had it, right? Surely, as night follows day. And that's going by not Lance's figures, but by the government's own figures in that respect. 0344 499 1000. We'll take some general comment on this as well, your own analysis from what you're reading of this. I think we all become kind of armchair virologists at this time, but I'd like to think with, reasonable and sensible ideas about what we're trying to find out. I mean, you can always find facts that suit your own view, but I think most people are fairly diligent and intelligent about looking up the data and thinking, lots of people look at the numbers and think, well, that doesn't quite make sense, or it might make sense, but it doesn't mean to say we're all going to die by any measure. So if you've had your own endeavours and dipped your own toe into COVID research, I'd be intrigued to hear that. And the wider question, will you be obeying the rules from December the 2nd?